Yeah, prosperity. I have to say, I have to own that Dorianne and I have managed prosperity, at least financial prosperity in our lives, and in many other ways. We have a wonderful relationship. We have just a, I'm very satisfied with where I am in life, and yet still continue to grow and learn new things and so forth. Dorianne's at a baby shower for her niece today, so she couldn't be with us today. But into every life a little rain must fall. I'll use her as an example since she isn't here. Back in October, we were walking home from an American Club of Lyon lunch with several of us. We meet once a week, and some of us have lunch together, and we were walking home. And she had had some problems with one of her hips, so I would walk beside her. And about a block from home, I get a message on my watch that the Amazon delivery guy is at our door. And it was a wine delivery, so I had to get there. And so I said, "Are you going to be okay?" She goes, "Yeah." And I go ahead, the block, and go to the apartment. And then I get another message on my phone, on my watch, saying, "I've fallen, please come back." And I go back, and she was in front of one of our favorite restaurants, which is located in a park right near our home. And she had fallen, and the whole park surface in that area is dirt. It's like they do the petanque bowling stuff on it and everything. So it's a hard surface, but it's not that hard. It's dirt. But she had managed to land her elbow on the only metal plate in the park. So the people from the restaurant had brought her a chair, and a fellow who spoke some English had gotten on the phone and called an ambulance, and there were other people coming around helping her by the time I got back. And we were 12 hours in the emergency room, so I learned a lot about French medicine, which is excellent, by the way. And a couple days later, she had surgery. And then she's been in physical therapy ever since. She's still attending physical therapy. She's seeing Joan Chamberlain from this community while we're here. And then we return to France. She'll have some more so she can play the violin again. But she's come a long way, and she now can play about 15 minutes at a time. And, we're knowing that will continue to expand. So there's a lot of ways to look at something like that. I could look at it and say, oh, my God, what a tragedy. Isn't that awful? And yes, it was. It was tragic and difficult and painful. But on the other hand, there's a growth pattern that has arisen out of that. That there's something new about her tenaciousness in applying and taking care of her health. And, like everyone else, during the course of that time, we had COVID and we had the virus and we had all that other stuff to deal with, It seems to be part of life today. I think I forgot to put my title slide up, didn't I? Okay. So what is abundance? What is prosperity? Ernest Holmes, you may have heard of, and this is, to me, is one of the most important statements he ever wrote or said. What Spirit can do for you, it can only do through you. Not to you, through you. That my good has to emerge from within me. There's a process called emergence. That's how human development works. And how we grow and how we develop our own capacities, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, how our cultures evolve. And if we understand the nature of emergence, we look to the exterior world to reflect back to us where we need to grow. Where am I insufficient, let's say? Where do I not understand what's happening, and where can I study more or learn more? Or where did I miss an opportunity to be grateful or to tell someone I care about them? It can only do for me what it can do through me. This is so critical because, have you ever stood there or woken up in the morning or before you go to bed at night and it's been a bad day and you say, why is this happening to me? And that slight semantic difference can make all the difference in the world in terms of consciousness, in terms of the development of our belief system that becomes the law of our life. Now, everything I believe isn't true, but I think it is. At some level of the subconscious, I act as though what I believe is true. So if you thought the Chinese balloon was full of bioweapons, that's how you acted. Whether it's true or not is another question. So I think it's important for us, in addition to developing all our beliefs, is to try to find a way to align them with what is reality, what is true. And that can take a lot of work because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Have you noticed? There's a lot of people that unintentionally mislead you because they've been misled or they don't understand. And there's also people that make their living by misinforming other people. The underarm deodorant business, for example. Well, advertising has to convince you you have a problem, whether you do or not. So you go out and buy the product. You know, and they're so good at what they do that we have what I alluded to earlier is all these storerooms full of stuff we no longer use that we thought at some point we had to have. And we couldn't bear to throw it away. See? So, abundance, as we said before, equals freedom of choice. Prosperity equals freedom of choice. Abundance equals freedom of choice, but abundance, we can have an abundance of the wrong things. I think it was George Carlin that said, you can't have everything. Where would you put it? You see, we can have an abundance of bad ideas. We can have an abundance of friends that don't treat us well. We can have an abundance of visa bills. Let's see, too much month at the end of the money. We can also have an abundance of wisdom, an abundance of joy, an abundance of money that allows us to choose what we're going to do, what we're going to wear, where we're going to go, who we're going to contribute to. But we can also have an abundance of stuff that doesn't serve us. We can have too much money. A lot of times when we have an issue, a character issue, or a personality issue, we will overcompensate. You know, we'll go way beyond what is enough. We'll need to build a palace for ourselves, for example. If we work really hard, we become diligent, we amass enough of a fortune that we can show other people who we are. I'll show them. I was, not a highlight of my life, but for a while I was in the Amway program, the multi-level marketing thing. This is way before I found this teaching. And what I noticed as I would go, you go to the rallies and you listen to, back in those days, tapes of people that had been successful in Amway, the 0.00001%. As they tell you in the brochure, the average earning in the brochure, they'd have to have this disclosure thing, the average earning of an Amway representative at the time was 17 cents a year. Average. So half of them were making less than that. Anyway, I got into it. I got pretty good at it because I can talk. I can talk to people and so forth. But what I noticed pretty quickly as you listened to the tapes and you went to the rallies, a big part of the incentive to do this multi-level marketing, which took a major commitment of your time and energy to be successful, was you'd be able to go tell your boss to shove that job you hate. Or you'd be able to drive down in your neighborhood with your new car or your new motorhome and make your neighbors feel shame that they don't keep up with you. See, and I say, okay, I always try to pay attention to who's speaking and who are they talking to, or what are they talking to. And I realized that was not something I wanted to be a part of. You see, they weren't speaking to the best qualities in people because they probably tried that and it didn't work. Because if I'm not in a place to hear from my best qualities, and you speak to my best qualities, I won't hear you. So we're having a lot of that today. The U.S. has been, quite the spectacle from overseas in terms of political discourse, for example. And there's a few other issues that I would say in order to resolve some of the issues in America now, you need a number of what I would call whole system transformations. And it's just minor things. Education, healthcare, politics, business, government. Infrastructure. Well, yeah. And it's not that other parts of the world don't have problems that equal to or bigger than that. It's just that, I guess in my world, you all are on display because I do pay attention to what's going on here. But you have to wonder, how do we get to a place like that? How do we get to a place where things don't appear to work? It's not a lack of innovation. It's not a lack of creativity. It's not a lack of finances. It's not a lack of possibility or potential. It's a narrowing of my ability to accept that I might be worthy. It's an underabundance of compassion, a poverty of compassion. And we all know it. It's kind of obvious. No matter which side of whatever spectrum we're talking about you happen to come down on, people accuse the other side of doing what they're doing or doing what I'm doing. And we know that. And we don't seem to be able to do much about it. It's sort of like there's this process happening and it's unfolding and it's got some momentum behind it. And it reminds me of the sense of circling the drain sometimes. And the question comes up, aren't we better than that? And the answer is yes, we are, because don't confuse your self-worth with your net worth. Don't confuse your value as a divine being with what's happening in your life, because they may not be in alignment. But that doesn't make the self-worth less true. We all deserve the best. But it seems that many of us are unwilling to accept that. So prosperity is a sense of actualizing the potential that already exists. Abundance is already here because it's there. Everything you need is already here. It's already here or it's in process. We go back to the idea Spirit can only do for me what it can do through me. That's because Spirit, being infinite, nothing can be added to it. So everything that can possibly exist must already exist, either as potential or as actualized potential. And what I am is the middleman, the middle person. I'm the one that actualizes the potential into experience, into existence. So the problem isn't a lack of potential. The problem isn't that potential can only be expressed in a limited way. The problem is the middleman, or woman, or person, or whatever. The middle human. That's the problem. The problem is, am I getting out of my own way enough to have prosperity show up over here? Am I accepting my good, which the universe, and by the way, there's nothing over this side in terms of potential that in any way limits its expression. It actually is leaning in and has a bias to express. Physicists tell us that in multiple universes, the law of physics, as we currently understand it, says everything that can happen must happen. So there's no withholding on the side of Spirit, on the side of this potential. Whatever I can accept of it will express through me, through a process of emergence. And it will show up as my life experience, which you are then free to take and interpret as you choose. The problem is when we look around and we see a lot of stuff that isn't positive, we tend to internalize it. Well, that's just the way things are. We can't expect anything beyond that. What else are you going to do, you know? It can be a very simple thing, like you're driving down the road, and this is something only baby boomers will understand, because millennials and Gen X's and so forth don't drop in on people. But the baby boomers, when we were young growing up, you just go over to somebody's house, you know, unannounced, and if they were really good friends, you just walked in. See, I understand that young people, when I tell my daughter stories like, she goes, "Oh my God, I would never do that." You know, they text you that they're coming, and then they don't come to the door and ring. They text you that they're outside. You know, that's just what they do now. But if I were going to go, say Dorian and I are driving down the road, and we say, well, let's go over and see Tony and Evelyn. Let's go to the junkyard and see, you know, have a conversation with them. And she might say, oh, they're probably not there. Oh, okay, we won't do it. Just something as simple as that, to say that that's a limited way of thinking. Oh, they're probably not home. Oh, if I submit this application, I probably won't get hired. Oh, if I ask her out, she probably will say no. And even if that's true, the experience of having her say no takes you someplace within yourself. You see, when we deny experience, we deny growth. Now, again, you have to have some balance. You can't just stop at every house and just knock on the door and see who's home. You know, so balance. See, that's overcompensation sometimes. See? I'm afraid there won't be enough, so I'll do this and hoard and hoard and gather and gather and gather. And I might be doing that with drama. Ever know any drama hoarders in your life? You know? Oh, God, let me tell you what happened now. You see? And it's always the same people that this drama stuff is happening to. What's with that? The same thing. See? I don't want a dramatic life. I want an adventuresome life. There's a difference. Adventure is putting yourself into places that might unnerve you intentionally, like riding a roller coaster. If that doesn't do it for you, you can bungee jump, or you can, when we were in Mexico, the people were riding around behind the boats on the parasails. My mother did that once when she was in her 50s and crashed into the side of a hotel in Cancun. She only had some bruises and scrapes, but, she had a great story. That was an adventure for her, see? Well, I don't want to do anything that might cause me to be upset or hurt or in any way disturbed. Well, stay home. See? But then you'll look around your house and it'll be disturbing how dirty it is, right? Life is both the positive and the negative. When we deny one or the other, we close off a huge aspect of ourselves. Joseph Campbell used to say, the mythologist, he said, "My enemies make me proud." He said, the people that are enemies in my life, I'm glad they're my enemies, because it says something about the quality of my own sense of worldview. You see. If you're being persecuted, you better make sure you're being persecuted by the right people. Because that's part of life. Getting sick, breaking your arm, falling down, too much month at the end of the money. No one is exempt from that. And if your idea of the spirituality being taught in New Thought is that, you've been misled. But the truth is, it can always be better. That there's a potential for growth, for abundance, for prosperity in everything. You see, my bet is Dorian's going to be a better violinist for having gone through this. Because that's the kind of person she is. That's what she will actualize out of it. You see. The average millionaire in the United States has been bankrupted twice. How many people won't take the risk of being bankrupted? because I couldn't, I wouldn't want to. So we practice avoidance of what we don't want, when sometimes what we don't want is just what we need in order to break through to another level of realization, another level of potential. And I'm not saying go out and be reckless, but maybe dance on the edge of that a little bit. Sorry, my watch is buzzing. So I only got 30 minutes left. Now we're going to wrap up. But see, this is what, to me, the problem I've seen with the use of prosperity classes and prosperity trainings within New Thought and other places is that it sort of sets it up, A, as primarily financial, and B, as being about becoming vastly wealthy. That doesn't work on this planet. If everybody's vastly wealthy, then no one is. You see? How much is enough for you to be a choice? How much is enough for you to live a life that you can feel good about? How much is enough for you, whether it's money or love or relationship or physical exercise or whatever it is, how much is enough? And that's enough. But when we say, I'll never have enough, there'll never be enough, then we're saying we've accepted the fact that there's a hole within us that cannot be filled. And I'm suggesting that is misinformation. The idea that you are not a magnificent expression of possibility is a lie. You're perfect, whole, and complete as a human being, which means you're imperfect, you're reaching for wholeness, and you'll never have completion until we pass away or we die, and then we don't know what happens. I don't know about you. Some of you think you know what happens. I don't know what happens. I don't care what happens. I think if I was supposed to know, I'd know. I'm not afraid of dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens. But it's the same thing. See, that's the ultimate fear, is the fear of death, the fear of our own mortality. And all the other fears of not enough and all this comes out of that. The second half of life should be about learning how to die. And I'll just close with this. And I've said this before. You may have heard it before, but it bears repeating. When I was a first-year student in the Science of Mind in Fort Lauderdale in 1989, there was this, we had a big class. There were like 180 people in our Science of Mind 1, it was called then. And there's this old man that I would talk to on the breaks. He was probably my age now. And he said, you know what the Science of Mind is about, don't you? And I said, tell me, because I thought I did. See? I said, tell me. He said, it's about learning how to die. I said, okay, expand on that a little. He said, when you learn how to live, you'll know how to die. When you don't learn how to live, you'll go out kicking and screaming and fighting and all that. When you learn how to live, you'll know when it's time and you'll go peacefully. And I have seen so many examples of that in my own life. I think he was on to something. So take that into your prosperity consciousness. Live your best life, and that means a life where you have enough to spare and to share. Thank you, and namaste.